Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Crunch Time Netley on Amateur Sport ASTV Productions. It's going to take me a little bit for that. I've done that a couple times now. On ASTV Productions, I am Joe Hamilton, along with Theo. Theo, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Monday was gorgeous. It was a nice day outside. Some good news, some interesting news, and some wonderful salaries. Someone's getting paid finally.
Let's get right into that. Dak Prescott is receiving a 4-year contract. I believe that is worth $160 million, and he's going to get a lot of guaranteed money here. Go through this contract, Theo, because this guy is not worth this by a long shot.
See, and I'm going to beg to differ here, Joe, and here's why. I mean, let's go over the contract real quick here. 4 years, 160, 126 guaranteed $1 million. First 3 years set at 42. When you really think about it, he has had the franchise tag last year. Yes, he was injured. I think the franchise tag was 31.4 last year. So that put him in the top 10. And if I look at the stats, that puts him at number 9 compared to last year's top paid quarterbacks. Now, when you think about it, first and foremost, a lot of people that don't like the Dallas Cowboys will say, with Dak, you're 8-8. And without Dak and Mr. Dalton, you were 6-10. Okay. With Dak, you are a team that is more powerful offensively. He had great offensive numbers in the last 2 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys, and they were non-existent with Andy Dalton. Problem with the Dallas Cowboys is this year their defense was atrocious. There were so many holes in there. I mean, it was either looking at an old man's set of dentures or a piece of Swiss cheese, you pick. But Dak Prescott really runs that offense well. And the problem without having Dak there is Zeke is lost. And without Zeke running the ball, then you're relying strictly on your offensive players, your wideouts, your slots. Well, come to think of it, I haven't seen a season where quarterback salaries have dropped. So when you think about it, at 42 per the next 3 years, he's going to be in that top 10, of course. Does he deserve to be in that top 10? Probably. But he leads this Dallas Cowboys offense to an opportunity to win more games than another option out there. What were the other options out there for the Dallas Cowboys besides, I mean, Andy Dalton's not an option. They knew that.
Russell
Wilson. What were they going to do without Dak? Where do you think they were going to go, Joe, if they didn't sign Dak Prescott?
You didn't hear me, did you? Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson is not leaving Seattle. Let's be honest here. Russell Wilson is calling, cry wolf. He has roots in Seattle. He has family in Seattle. He has ownership of other teams in Seattle. He does not want to leave. He is only expressing his concerns because he got hammered the last 9 seasons in a row for almost, 396 knockdowns? Whatever that stat was, that's incredible. It's number 1.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's been a broken record for 9 seasons. It's not like it's been 1 season and done. I don't think Russell Wilson fits a Dallas Cowboys offense either, because he doesn't have a relationship with CeeDee Lamb, does not have a relationship with Amari Cooper. Will he gain one of those? Probably, but not like Ty Lockett and DK Metcalf. And the 2 things that Seattle need to address is the offensive line and keeping their running backs healthy. That's when Russell Wilson is very good at what he does. Dak Prescott, I mean, the other thing is you're signing him based on the fact that he's going to be 100% when he's starting preseason or September. We don't know what his, game plan is for his recovery, for his rehab. We're hoping he'll be ready to go, but that's a big question mark remain to be seen. You think Russell Wilson? I don't think Russell Wilson. I don't think Deshaun Watson. I don't think Jimmy G. Matt Ryan was the only thing that I thought that possibly could have happened, because you take Matt Ryan, he is more of a pocket passer, similar to what Troy Aikman was back in the day. Troy Aikman probably a little more legs, but Matt Ryan and Dak Prescott's contracts were very similar. That's the only move I would have seen done.
Yeah, I just don't understand this whole contract just because you get paid, in my mind, Theo, off of playoff wins. Him and Tony Romo alike have this almost the same what is it? They almost have the same resume. Both can't win the big games. You said it yourself. You're 8-8 with Dak Prescott. What can he do for you? He's a 500 quarterback. He isn't anything more than that. He's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback by anyone's imagination. Maybe yours. I don't know. But he is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and he's being paid like one. He's right now the second highest paid quarterback outside of, guess who? Aaron Rodgers. Does he deserve that? No. Go ahead.
I mean, the thing is, like I said, when you think of Jerry Jones, you think of what he's done in the past, and you see you had Troy Aikman, you had Jason Garrett in there for a bit for whatever reason. Then you went to Tony Romo, and then you had a bit of a cluster of a couple, and then you found Dak. Well, Dak is still fairly young. I think he's only 27 or 28 years old, if that. And furthermore, like I said, you need to pay him because you don't have a replacement right now. I mean, Carson Wentz wasn't even a thought, and I don't even want to put that in there.
Why not draft one?
Quarterback. Sorry?
Why not draft one?
Okay, so you're going to draft. What's their draft spot now, Joe? It's not in the top 10.
It's not. No, but the thing is, I know for a fact that the Dallas Cowboys have what it takes to trade up. Okay. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Now you're drafting based on potential versus what they can do now.
Okay. Yeah.
And the potential of a first, look at the first round. Unless you're going for Mac out of Alabama, who I think would be a great fit in Dallas. I think he should go to Dallas if he gets there. I mean, I don't see. I can't see a quarterback from North Dakota State going there. I can't see obviously, Lord TL is going to be off the board number one. If Jacksonville's not stupid, they'll take him. They should take him. But you look at what's out there and what fits that system, and there isn't much out there outside. I mean, it's not that it's not a no-brainer. It's just the fact that you want your team to win now. Jerry wants it to win now. The culture of the NFL is we want to win now. And if Dak is going to be that person that gives you that best opportunity, and I'm going to say that, we can probably both agree, Joe, that this deal could have been signed last year at 35 or 37 compared to 42. And it could have been for that 5 years for the same amount of money. And maybe this is also the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones saying they made a mistake last year and tagged him. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think last year would have been the worst time to sign it just because of his injury. Now,
you didn't know he was going to get injured.
No.
I
know that.
That's garbage.
No. Here's the thing, though.
That's like you saying you signed Aaron Rodgers to a 5-year deal and he blows out a knee in Game 4. Come on, man.
Here's the thing, though. In reality, you're right, though, because no one knew that injury was coming. The fact is, Dak Prescott probably would have signed that deal last year. I think he was loyal to the Dallas Cowboys. I thought there was a little bit of a misunderstanding with that relationship, though. I didn't know that relationship was that good last year. When a quarterback's being tagged at his age, he's not young. He's not old by any means in the NFL, but he's not young anymore. You know what I'm saying? He's a veteran. And what has he done for you? That's the thing. That's probably why Jerry Jones didn't do it. I understand your reasoning, though. I totally get that. But at the same time, he's probably thinking, win a playoff game. Or at least he was thinking, win a playoff game, then I'll do it. The unfortunate injury happens. I mean, come on. That was gruesome. I mean, I thought maybe they were going to tag him again, to be honest with you. I thought, or he was going to hit free agency, go somewhere else. Because I was thinking there was no way in hell you're going to give Dak Prescott that kind of money. And they did.
I'm a little surprised. I mean, like I said, last year, I still would have signed him last year. I mean, like inflation rate on a quarterback salary is only going up. Quarterbacks are not going to be cheap in 5 years, 2 years, next year.
You're saying 42 million per is cheap?
It's when you look at an elite quarterback in the top 10, Joe, mark my words. Here's March 8th, 2021, International Women's Day. In 4 years, when it's his fourth and final year of his contract, sitting at whatever's left, I will say that he's in the bottom of the top 10. He's between 5 and 10. He's not in the top 5.
I agree just because he hasn't done anything. And I make a lot of comparisons to Tony Romo. Now, I say that. I wanted your thoughts on that, first of all. Do you kind of see where I'm going with that, or am I nuts?
No, you're not nuts. I mean, quarterbacks, teams' ultimate goal,
To win
and maybe
Super
this
Bowl.
is a change in the culture. I don't know, Joe. This is something that I've talked about a lot in other sports. This is the get mine generation. The get mine generation is I'm going to go out and get as much as I can for the number of years I'm going to play because I'm not guaranteed to have a 12-year career anymore. Stats show that NFL careers are shortening year after year after year. Injuries are causing players to end their careers earlier year after year. We see players, first and foremost, take Barry Sanders, who gets out of the league at the right time so he can still play with his grandkids. Didn't worry about the money. He's got oodles of cash. He didn't have a 15-year career, nor did he need one. Players are looking at it, the get mine society, get mine generation, to say, forget the Super Bowl ring. Yeah, it's wonderful to have him. Brady's got 7, whoop-de-doo. But he just made $25 million tax-free. And those players are realizing maybe, I would love to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, I want to be a part of that Super Bowl winning squad. But if I've got 4 years at 26 guaranteed, 126 guaranteed, I'm going to be a very, very wealthy man. I've taken care of my family for several generations. If I'm smart with my money, I'm good to go. Congratulations, I won this game.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, but it'll be interesting to see if he's even there in 4 years.
Oh, they're not going to – no one's going to take forward. No one's going to trade for him. This is not a Carson Wentz situation. This is not on one side of the paradigm or one side of the scale, you've got Carson Wentz, who has to prove himself in a new city in Indianapolis. And on the other side of the scale, you've got Patrick Mahomes, who's been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 2 years. And both of them are in the top 10. Both of them are getting paid extreme amounts of money.
Top 10 in what instance? Because, yes, one is a top 10 quarterback, but the other,
the other's getting paid like not even a top 100 player. Quarterback salaries are, I think the owners and the ones signing those paychecks are realizing that the quarterback position shouldn't be the most fragile position, shouldn't be the position that's most paid necessarily, but it is. And unfortunately, agents are doing a tremendous job to make sure that position is getting paid very handsomely. And agents are going to the bank on it, which is great. Players that are playing quarterback are getting bank money. Running backs aren't seeing nearly half of what a quarterback receives. We won't even talk about wide receivers. Offensive linemen get paid better than running backs now. We're seeing J.J. Watt making 23 guaranteed over the next 2 years. That's peanuts. He's making half of what Dak is making in 1 year over 2 years. Now, JJ's a bit older, but still a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, that's for sure. J.J. Watt still scares me at this day and age. There were a couple things. You brought up Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
His former team in the Philadelphia Eagles have come out and said that Jalen Hurts is their guy.
Until the draft.
And you don't see Jalen Hurts being the guy there.
Well, I mean, here Jalen Hurts, I like what he does. I like the camaraderie around his team. Rallying on the troops, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But Jalen Hurts and his short career in the NFL still needs to be proven. And you know what? And that's the thing. I mean, you took Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round, I believe, last year, or late 2nd round. So here's a guy that's just been drafted. And I'm a firm believer in building a pedigree with a player with the development within your coaching and your coordinators. So you have to believe, if you're going to say Jalen Hurts is your guy, you got to give him a chance to be your guy. You can't bring in a Nick Foles situation to a Tricky Mitchie and, go back and forth. I mean, the Eagles are in a bit of a predicament. I mean, I really don't understand several of their front office moves. But if they're going to stick with Jalen, stick with him, see how he goes, and let him run with the team this year. And for heaven's sake, get a training staff that's going to keep your team healthy, for God's sake. I mean, they've been riddled with injuries nonstop for the last 3 years.
That team healthy last year was a playoff team.
You got to keep your health. You got to keep your team healthy. I mean,
am I right though, Theo?
They were very talented. Absolutely. They were set up. I mean, you look at how well. Okay, so here you look at Carson Wentz. Terrible 3 quarters, but his 4th quarter play was outstanding. That's when the team finally started to play decent football, was in the 4th quarter. But unfortunately, football is a 60-minute game.
Agreed.
So, there's the problem. Carson didn't play a full 60-minute game, or he was just out of his mind that he couldn't figure out life for the first 45. The bottom line is, talent was there. I mean, they had a good chance to do what they had to do, to get in, to do what they had to do. And they weren't playing in a strong division either.
Yeah.
So, they could have made the playoffs.
Could they have made noise with that team? The way it's constructed?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, there's, you look at that NFC, and there's 4 teams above them that are much better. And I think this year when you see the offseason, I'm not too worried. I'm going to leave the draft out of this. I mean, we're going to see teams looking at what they have and assessing what they have. And it's going to be the team that fills the most holes that's going to see the best advancement and best progression this upcoming season.
Agreed. So we'll take a quick break. We will come back, talk some St. Louis Blues hockey there on the ice tonight. And there's a lot more hockey talk where that came from. So until we come back here on Crunch Time.
Hey Crunch Time fans, my name is Graham Forsyth. I'm the host of Coffee with Graham and the Prospect Show on ASTV Productions. On Coffee with Graham, I talk to athletes, coaches, and whoever else involved in the amateur sports scene in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. And on the Prospect Show, I talk to the best young hockey prospects from around North America. You can catch all the coverage on ASTV Productions. You can catch Coffee with Graham on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And for the Prospect Show, that show airs every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Hope to see you there. Have a good.
Back here on ASTV Productions, of course, I'm Joe along with Theo. The St. Louis Blues are on the ice tonight, and they're looking at one hell of a road trip. Going into this game, they were 4-0-1. They have the chance to get they have, I think that, so 4-0-1, they have 8 points. They could get 10 points out of a possible 12. Or 11 points out of a possible 12.
11 to 12.
Thank you. 11 out of possible 12. And that's amazing. That's some very good road play. This has been a very good road team for years. What have you seen on this road trip, Theo? I know you haven't really paid attention to the Blues, but you really have at the same time.
I mean, I watch hockey. I'm not going to lie. Like St. Louis, like you said, is playing 750 hockey on the road, and this current road trip they're on isn't involving the Arizona Coyotes, which is helpful. But also, it's starting to see some players come back in the lineup, and you're starting to see some chemistry. I'm still waiting to see where Mr. Hoffman's at because I haven't seen him around. Let me know where you find him, which pitch he's in.
He did just score a game-winning goal.
Yay. Finally. Congratulations, Hoffman. You get a gold star today. Good for you.
You want a cookie? No, I'm kidding.
You show Mama where the cookies are hiding. You did that. Good for you. Now let's score some more. The bottom line is they're starting to play Blues hockey. They're tightening up the neutral zone. They're got some serious holes on the backside, but they're figuring life out. And I think what it is it's the time of possession that really, I mean, we don't see that as a stat, but for me, when I watch the Blues, they hold the puck a lot more than the other team, is what I've seen in this current road trip. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, having some of the veterans back in the lineup playing veteran-style hockey is leading this younger group to better play as well. So Berube's got something stirring up that's working well. And like you said, it's very fortunate that they are on the road right now because they are a much better road team.
And on top of that, you just got your leading scorer in Vladimir Tarasenko back, and he didn't look terrible in his return to play. That's for sure. He made a move in overtime that made me think he was back. Yes, he didn't score on the play, but just that hard turning your shoulder in, that hard move. I was waiting for Tarasenko to do that to see if he was fully back, and yes, he is fully back. He didn't score in that game. He hasn't scored in this game yet. They're easing him back in. I think his ice time was like at or a little north of 16 minutes last game. It'll be interesting to see where they bump that up to this game. I know they don't want to go full bore right away with him, which is kind of the right thing to do here, isn't it right, Theo?
Well, I mean, you got to ease your star players back. I mean, when Pierre-Luc Dubois joined the Jets, I think he only played 12 and a half minutes in his first game, 14-20 in his second. And, he's playing around 14 to 16 minutes now. So I know he's not a Tarasenko number guy, but the thing is, you got to ease him in. You got to get his game legs back. And, that precision, that accuracy, that vision on the ice will come back very quickly for Vlad. And I think he's excited to be back in a Blues jersey. That's the key. And you don't want to have him not playing in the playoffs for you too. So you got to be you don't have to be cautious. You have to be assertive with his ice time.
I think all Blues fans were a little worried, especially they were cringing whenever he would take his first hit after. He was laying the body. I mean, it's everything you wanted to see and more if you were a St. Louis Blues fan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's his style of game shouldn't change because of an injury, and it's very difficult to get into that position where you change your game because of an injury, and then you lose, the rest of the style of play you're usually doing. So for Vlad to keep bumping and grinding and getting dirty, that's what he wants to do. That's the way he plays. He's got a stocky shelf to him, so use it to your advantage. Don't change the way you play. That's your instinct. That's what you got to maintain.
You got to maintain that. That's for sure. There's a big night in the Honda West Division. By the way, that Blues game is at 1-1 there in the second period. Big time matchups in the Honda West Division. You got the Wild playing, and I kind of wanted before I got to the game, and I'm sure you'll give a score update. What do you think of the play of Kirill Kaprizov? This is a guy that Wild fans talk a lot about. Do you remember when Blues fans were gushing over Vladimir Tarasenko when he first came up?
Yeah, I do actually, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that. And he's living up to it. There was a goal I think he scored, I think it was last week or the week before, where he was behind the net and actually it made it look easy. Now, what have you seen in Kaprizov's game? Is this kind of another Tarasenko entering the league?
I think he's a little bit taller. I think he's a little faster, but he's younger, obviously. He's not, but he's 24 years old. Like, he's not like a spring chicken 19-year-old rookie, and he's doing it well. And he's leading the rookies right now in points. I think he's up to 21 or something like that. So, I mean, he's doing well, doing what the Wild need him to do because there's not a lot of offense on that team. He's doing it on the ice. He's doing it with his shirts. He's doing it with his interviews. The guy's flashy. He likes having a little bit of fun out there, which is good, which is also different than Vlad because I remember seeing Tarasenko being that flashy rookie. I mean, he did more talking on the ice than he did off the ice. And I think with Krill, I think he's really got to I think he's taking advantage of the fact that there's also another rookie in Minnesota that's not there right now, that was sent back to his homeland right after World Juniors in Rossi. So, I mean, it was probably one of those moves that the Wild are looking in hindsight, 2020, but right now they got a good one, and he's leading the league in rookie scoring. So I like the way he plays.
The Wild are up 1-0 in the third period, and they're playing Vegas. And, this could be good for the Blues. Because if Vegas struggles and if Colorado struggles, Colorado has some goaltending issues, some big-time goaltending issues. So it's going to be interesting, that's for sure. What are the trends you're following in this division?
Right now, I'm like you said, you hit it right on the nail. The goaltending is going to be the key to any division, including the West. I think Grubauer is lackluster. He's not playing as terrible as, let's say, Carey Price in Montreal.
Right.
But you also have several players offensively, Nathan McKinnon for one, that's not scoring extremely well. We're not seeing Alex Ovechkin doing the same thing out east, scoring a lot. Like, he's not leading the league in goals like we're expecting him to. Vegas is, you can't, like, I'm trying to say this. You talked to me earlier today about, who to blame for the Jets' debauchery of a game against Montreal on Saturday night. And you can't blame anybody. You can't expect every team, or you expect your team to play 56 games like they're the best games of their season.
No,
you're going to have ebbs and flows. And the thing is, with this right now in the middle of the league, we're looking at 20 to 25 games being played, almost at halfway of the season. This is almost, if you think about it, All-Star time or just after All-Star time in terms of games played. We're starting to see some of the wear and tear and the common denominators of playing a game or playing a team 9 times or 8 times over. You're seeing trend. The other trend I'm looking at is you see a win-loss record against a team in your division. Well, you can't compare that to other divisions. When you look and see how Arizona has owned St. Louis, the West Coast teams are having a hard time winning against anybody. Vegas has been very strong over the last 14 games, and we're not seeing prolific scoring from the prolific goal scorers. But we're seeing how teams are defending against an individual team. And we're seeing how those teams are processing a 3-game back-to-back-to-back scenario, playing 3 games against one team. We don't see that in a normal season. So the trend is, okay, if teams aren't coming out in their first game against that team extremely well, they've assessed it for game 2. They get the rubber match in game 3. And I'm seeing more of that type of play, not just in the West, but all the divisions.
Yeah, you're seeing that in all other divisions. And you have Colorado having goaltending issues, and I brought those up. Do they try to do something about that around the deadline? Because this is a team that was supposed to go to supposed to be a Stanley Cup contender, and they really aren't right now. We talked about Colorado and Vegas being those teams. Colorado just doesn't look like that right now.
Goaltending may be an issue. The question is, we talked about this last week about April 12th being that deadline. I think there's some untouchable teams in terms of trade deadline because you're going to have to deal with a quarantine period. And that time away from the ice just only increases the potential that it wasn't a great trade, a great thing to do at a deadline. I think this deadline is going to be one of the quieter deadlines we've seen in the past. I think if you're going to make a move, you've got to make it in the next week or two. You can't wait until April 12th. If you're waiting till April 12th and you're planning to make some sort of move, that's a little bit late, I think. And whether or not Colorado makes a move for a goaltender, I don't know who's buyers or sellers yet. And the sellers that are out there don't have great goaltending either. So, I'm not going to go trade with New Jersey or Buffalo for that matter, or Detroit.
And I'm not
touching any of those teams. And
I'm not going to Montreal either. There was a crazy ass rumor started on social media of them calling Montreal about Carey Price, and this is a guy that's been rumored to be traded for years now. Do you think he ever gets traded? Or do you think
Carey Price is one of the most expensive goaltenders out there. Number two, he hasn't played on no Canadian goaltender has been on a Stanley Cup winning team since '93.
Obviously.
Before you were born even. So, I mean, the bottom line is, does Carey Price deserve to play on a Stanley Cup winner? Would he like to? Of course.
Does he help a Stanley Cup contender?
Yes. Yes, he does. And
at this point in his career, and look at what he's done in Montreal as of late. It's not been good. So,
yeah. But so you talk about NFL quarterbacks being paid based on their play in the playoffs. Playoffs is a different season. You'd agree with me, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Carey Price plays different when it's game series. Unfortunately, this season has looked a lot like game series. They just haven't played a best of 7.
And he hasn't looked good.
And he hasn't played very well. Now, that's the concern of it, because when you get into a playoff contention, especially in the Northern Division, Montreal may not make the playoffs. They're sliding down big time. They're sitting in 4th right now. And they're Vancouver and Calgary is right there behind them.
We'll talk about that as we get into the North Division, because
sure.
Vancouver pisses me off. I mean, that's a team that – but let's go to break, and then we'll pick up with that conversation right after this. Oh, you're watching Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Welcome back to Crunch Time here on ASTV Productions. Joe, Theo, alongside me. We're just going to talk about the North Division, and we talk about your New York Jets, or not New York Jets, Winnipeg Jets. You can laugh at me for that one. I'm just on a roll, dude. When I go fast, I say things I don't necessarily mean. Don't know why, but no, your Winnipeg Jets. They're right in the thick of things. You can't have games like you did the other night. Conor Hellebuyck, last year's Vezina Award winner, was on the ice for 4 of those goals. He hasn't been at his Vezina form. I don't know what it is this year, Theo, but can you kind of talk about Conor Hellebuyck real quick?
I think Conor's still trying to find his Vezina style, but the problem is that was last year. We want to play this year hockey, and this year's a completely different animal. I looked at the Northern Division in front of him, and the defensive group that plays for the Jets is, I think, second lowest paid or lowest paid amongst the Northern Division. So you're relying on goal scoring and you're relying on goaltending. And the defense has kind of been number 3 out of 3 there in terms of priorities. Conor Hellebuyck stood on he wins games flat out. I mean, no doubt about it. He faces 42 shots, 41 shots a game. He's only letting in 1 goal. And unfortunately, on Saturday night, he didn't save as many as he let in. And you're going to have those games. My issue with Conor is the focus. How do you lose focus in certain games? And there's 3 that have happened already in this beginning half season, that in the last minute, a unfortunate situation has occurred where the communication between Hellebuyck and the defense, or Hellebuyck and another forward, or the defense themselves, has put Hellebuyck in a terrible situation where he is left hung out to dry. And the game is lost, goes into overtime, or the Jets lose points. Now, will that bite them in the butt later on? Time will tell. But my concern is the focus that he is lacking at times, simply because the Jets are relying on their goaltending so much. I mean, last year he faced the most amount of shots. This year it looks almost like he's on pace to do the same. When Laurent Brossoit, the backup, has shown into net, he's done very well. I think he's 4-1. So having that said, maybe you'll see Brossoit play a couple extra games to give Hellebuyck this break, because they are one of the teams that hasn't played as many games in the North. So that might come in later on too. So I think we're going to look at seeing a similar strategy. I think with what Paul Maurice is doing, I think he's got it figured out. I just don't want them to get complacent with this, thinking they're going to win the game by only playing 25 minutes and not 60.
I agree. I mean, there was a big conversation with the Blues for many years. They would play good in 1 or 2 periods, but they wouldn't finish off the game, and you have to do that. But you talked about Montreal earlier, and talk about a team that was on a high to begin the season that is now they're still over 500, and they're still in 4th place in that North Division, but they are a team that is trending downward. Now that I think about it, I think they did the best thing possible in firing Julian. Or do you think this is a reason for them to think, you know what, maybe firing Julian at the time wasn't the right thing to do?
Well, it's interesting because Claude Julien was one of the older coaches, lots of maturity, lots of games under his belt. He gets canned for a very young coach, similar to what they did in Toronto. I've mentioned that before. Dominic Ducharme has a winning pedigree in junior hockey in Canada, especially on the East Coast. I think what he brings to the table is a new energy, similar to what's happened in Ottawa, similar to what happened in Toronto. The big difference between Montreal and Toronto is Toronto's got extreme talent. They've got amazing talent that Montreal does not have at the front. Ottawa, I mean, they're a young team. Ottawa's going to be making mistakes, but the thing with Ottawa is they're going to keep trying. They're going to keep doing what they have to do, and they're going to build that confidence eventually. May not have a winning season this year, but they're going to keep fighting. So, did Montreal needed a change? Yeah, because when you go 2-8 in 10 games and you want to make the playoffs and you want to keep playing hard, you got to find a reason. Unfortunately, you can't blame your players as much as you can call your coach a scapegoat. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, when you fire a coach, it's one of those things that you better have a pretty good one to replace him with. And secondly, it's a wake-up call for your players saying you guys aren't playing well enough. And whether that new regime is going to come in, that new blood is going to come in and help and change the way the ship is running. I mean, Dom Ducharme knows what he's doing. And I think these young guys will eventually pick it up. Jeff Petry's having a hell of a season. Josh Anderson and Tyler Toffoli are playing lights out. Suzuki's doing well up the front. Kotkaniemi's kind of slowed down a little bit. Gallagher's slowed down a little bit. But, I mean, they've got the tools there to keep that team going and put the pucks in the net.
Yeah, I would say so too. The fact that the Montreal Canadiens are a young team still, I mean, they have room to grow. But do you think Dominic Ducharme is the long-term answer there? Or do you think maybe, just maybe, they bring back Patrick Roy? I mean,
no, that's not happening. Don't even. That's no. Next question.
I'm sorry. I took that from Rod. I was watching, and some people were answering in.
I mean, Patrick Roy is loved by a lot of old school Canadians, but they never forget when he spoke to Ray-Jean Houle and he said, "Get me out of this city now." Back in '95 or '96.
Yeah, but don't you think most Canadiens fans kind of forgave him?
Okay, so look what he did. He won them 2 Stanley Cups standing on his head and neck. One as a rookie and one as a veteran. He had a long tenure in Montreal. He handled the stressors and the demands of a Montreal fan base. And he has coached in the Q. He has coached in Colorado. He's a very emotional coach.
Demonstrative, would you say?
I think he demonstrative. I don't know if I would say that about him. I'd say he's a very emotional coach. I think he's very raw. I think he's very demanding. I think he's someone that will not tolerate a lot of, this pretty boy mentality that's going around. I don't know if I should have said that, but I just did. And it's he's very old school. But will he return to Montreal? No.
It'd be nice maybe if Montreal fans were to forgive. Do you think they have forgiven though? I asked you that earlier. I don't think
I
you
think
think
so.
they have by now. Okay.
I think so.
And just an update on the Blues game. The Blues are winning 2-1. David Perron. David Perron's on one hell of a point streak here. But let's keep in the North Division. You talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs, man. I asked Rod Peterson a while back, how do you judge this team? Because they've been this good before. But can you really judge them on the season, or do you have to wait to the playoffs? Or can you judge them in two ways?
You don't judge them two ways yet. You judge them on the fact that they are very well balanced. They've got a good balance of forward and defense. They're winning games that they're supposed to win, and they're surprising teams with other wins. Just ask the Oilers when they got shut out for 120 minutes of hockey with a backup goalies. Austin Matthews is getting healed. His wrist isn't 100% just yet, but I mean, there's a lot of weapons in Toronto, and a lot of role players are fitting in different roles. And that's the great thing about what the Leafs have done is they've built a culture in that dressing room that it not only says to the guys, okay, top six, we want you to score every night, night in, night out. That's always great. But we've got guys that'll fit in and score when needed. I mean, we're seeing glimpses of the old Jason Spezza. Jumbo Joe's barreling down the middle of the ice, causing trouble in front. And when Wayne Simmons is on the ice, he's a force to be reckoned with still. He's got a new energy too. And match that with the younger guys that are on the wings, they are a dangerous team. And, I mean, I'm looking forward to this week because the Jets are going to match up against the Leafs. And they're going to have two games, Tuesdays and Thursday. And it's going to be an interesting match to see how they line up against the best team in the Northern Division.
It really is. And another one of the best teams in the North Division that just got shut out for 120 minutes in the Edmonton Oilers. I asked Wags earlier because we were talking about captains and Blues captains and whatever. I brought up, is Connor McDavid a good captain? He said no for locker room reasons. Would you agree with that? Before we even get to their play, do you agree with that?
I don't know who else would be captain.
Darnell Nurse, maybe?
No. Not yet. He hasn't shown me enough.
Tyson
Barrie hasn't shown me enough. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, maybe. But he hasn't
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, no, because what about Draisaitl?
He's too young. No, I mean, the character...
McDavid was too young.
No, but McDavid was the only piece of that puzzle that controlled the locker room. I mean, you don't have... That's the thing. Like, when you look at other captains out there, I mean, John Tavares, he's been in the league, but he's still a very prominent player on that Leafs roster. Blake Wheeler, older player, but still very prominent player on that roster. And you have to build a relationship within your group to say, not only am I going to lead by example, but I want you to follow and come aboard this philosophy we're working with. And I don't see anybody else but Connor McDavid doing that in Edmonton. Simply put.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Now, what about the team on the ice? Is this a team that can really contend for a Stanley Cup at this point? Or are they a few pieces away where they can maybe go out and trade for a guy to get them to the promised land?
You know, it's interesting because we're seeing not lines formed, but we're seeing pairings formed. And the Oilers have one fantastic pairing.
Draisaitl.
Yeah, I mean, those two guys are lights out.
What about the other
those
pair?
Lights are not working. You're relying on Nugent Hopkins, Kyle Yamamoto. James Neal got put on waivers. I mean, you're dealing with not a very strong roster after line one. That still is going to be the problem with the Edmonton Oilers.
They're too top heavy.
Not even top heavy. They're just one line heavy. I mean, you look at the Boston Bruins, for example, who are top heavy. You know, they got one line. They're whatever their line is called, the phenomenal line or the past the line, whatever you want to call them. but they've got a little bit of stuff, a little bit of grit, a little bit of sandpaper that can get you a couple goals here and there. They just haven't performed. Edmonton doesn't even have the sandpaper right now. It just, I look at Chason, or I look at, Nuge, and they're there, but it's not consistent. And when you lose 2 shutouts to the Leafs, that's your mark. That's your benchmark. Here we are, game 22, 23, and we just got shut out by the Leafs in our home barn twice. It's got to tell you something. How do you make a move? I don't know. I don't see a lot of these teams making moves because it's not only a quarantine thing, not even a COVID thing, it's a salary cap thing. They can't make these moves because they have to make it almost a lateral portion. If you're going to get rid of $2 million, you can only sign $2 million.
Who's in more of a cap hell at this point?
They all are.
Okay, no, Toronto or Edmonton. Who's more in cap hell at this point?
Well, okay, so you're going to try and – the only way you make moves in the Northern Division is with Northern Division teams so you don't cross the border.
Right.
If you cross the border, you can't look at a Southern team. Any of the other 3 divisions, you can't. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, like I said earlier, Joe, you can't look to make your team better without giving up something in the same value.
Agreed. I was, in the sense, trade your trash for gold. That was me as a fan. But no, I get it. I totally understand that. The fact is, you're not going to expect to get a Connor McDavid for, pennies.
No, that's not.
No, you know what I mean, though.
Just putting it. If I was going to be making a move, I would be making a move in the next week. If I was looking at a Southern team that's not playing well, as much as I would say Buffalo, but Buffalo's got so many contracts that are so ugly. You can't do anything with them unless the team takes the max 50%. That's the only way you're going to move something, and it's not going to happen. I just don't see it happening over the next month.
You don't? Okay, so talk about another team that you don't know what their identity is, and that's the Calgary Flames. This is a team that we thought maybe they'd be decent because they had a Sean Monahan, a Johnny Hockey, but this team is the opposite of what we thought they would be. But then again, they're always notorious for underwhelming. Is that fair enough to say?
Well, so you bring up the Calgary Flames. The one thing that they improved was goaltending. Jacob Markstrom. Okay, they got the goaltender they needed. Their defense lost a couple of veterans that went lateral. One went to Vancouver, one went down south. Their forwards haven't changed very much in the last 2 years, and they're still relying on Brady, Tkachuk, Monahan, Johnny Hockey, like you said, Lindholm. There's a couple of players that are there that should be lights out, but other teams that, like I said, they figured out a game plan against them, and they've silenced a lot of this goal-scoring ability that was prominent in Calgary 2 years ago. Johnny Hockey had like 90 points 2 years ago, and he had 38-point drop last year, or 41-point drop last year. That was unheard of. That's over a third of your point total gone. And he was pretty hot in the first 11 games, having a point per game, but the rest of the team isn't following suit. So they're not in the same boat as Edmonton. They have a little more grit, in the back end. But unless that top line is going, it's very difficult to see them win.
They don't have any goaltending either, any consistent goaltending.
Jacob Markstrom's pretty decent.
He's decent, but he's not performing well in Calgary.
I'd say he's one of the top 3 goalies right now in the Northern Division.
Is that saying much?
Well, if you're a top 3 goalie, shouldn't you be in the playoffs?
Yeah, but I'm asking you, is that saying much? Is that saying much? Because we thought the North Division going into it was going to be the most competitive division. It is competitive, but it's not competitive in the right way in my mind. I thought there are going to be multiple good teams in this division. Besides the top 4. I thought Calgary was going to be in that top 4. At least, they still could be.
They still
toward
could
the
be. I
end.
mean, you ever see that horse game where you have to shoot water at the horse to make it go faster and whatnot? And
like one of those carnival games?
yeah, basically a carnival game, right? You got
Yeah.
to shoot something. Well, right now the target just isn't getting hit right at the bullseye for Calgary. Winnipeg's kind of slipping off that bullseye spot. Toronto's hitting the bullseye.
And Vancouver's like just
They're on the outer ring.
No, they're just ahead of
Calgary,
Ottawa in my mind.
Well, I think they're going to be. I mean, that fourth spot's going to be interesting. I think 1, 2, 3 will be there. I think you'll see the Leafs, the Oilers, and the Jets go 1, 2, 3, not in that order perhaps, but that fourth spot's going to have a battle of 3 teams. Ottawa's not in there, unfortunately.
Obviously.
But you're going to see those 3 teams really battle it out.
Vancouver, I don't know what to say about Vancouver. This is a team that I thought was on the up and up after beating St. Louis last year. I've said this many times. We've had this conversation many times, but it never ceases to amaze me how bad a team can be 1 year from the next. Like from the last, I should say, because last year you couldn't stop. You couldn't stop the Vancouver Canucks. They were faster than the Blues. They were more grittier than the Blues. Jacob Markstrom was like Roberto Luongo and net. I mean, but now it's not the same team, man. I just don't get it.
Well, that I think the proof there is that you disrupt the culture within the locker room. Jacob Markstrom was one of a favorite for a lot of the players. You decide to let him go and sign Braden Holtby. Elias Peterson, Bo Horvat, Brock Besser, to name those 3 top guys. They're supposed to be flying. Jake Virtanen has shown little promise or any type of strong play to consider being traded at all versus even hitting the stride that he should be hitting in Vancouver. Hughes is playing pretty decent hockey. You've got some decent defensemen in Schmidt and Tyler Myers there. You're paying him a little bit too much money as far as I'm concerned. But all in all, I mean, Vancouver still has the pieces there to finish in that fourth.
If Vancouver gets into the playoffs with this team, can they make noise still?
Can they make noise? Anyway, which, like you said, once you get into playoffs, man, it's the second season. But
I'm telling you right now, will this be the same hungry Vancouver team that we saw last year?
If they aren't injured and they're not limping into the fourth spot, they could do work.
Okay. But a team that's limping into the fourth spot will have something to prove, though.
But you got to be strong you got to be strong going in. You can't be out a couple of thoroughbreds and trying to make a mark, especially if you're taking on Toronto. Toronto will dismantle you. You have to get under them. If you're Vancouver, we're talking 30 games away now, of course, but
obviously, but
I mean, like you talk about a team like Vancouver or Winnipeg or whoever's in that third, fourth spot, they're going to have to find a way to break through, but also get under the skin in ways that they know they can. Winnipeg is built very strong in the top 12. I think Winnipeg challenges Toronto in terms of forward strength. I think Toronto has a slight edge in defense, but I think Winnipeg has an edge in goaltending. My next thought is, who's going to be hot that day? And that's what's going to be the difference. We'll see what happens tomorrow and Thursday.
It will be, that's for sure. Before we get out of here, just your thoughts on the East Division. We rarely talk about this division, and it's partially my fault. But your thoughts on, the contenders right now. Did you see this being what it is?
Nick Backstrom, 700 assists. I mean, very underrated player. He's playing lights out hockey for the Capitals. He needs his line mate Ovi to come back into form. I think Ovi's going to have a second half season that's going to be extremely hot. He's going to get going big time in Washington. I'm a little bit concerned with Pittsburgh. I haven't seen them make a lot of differences. I don't see them making the top 4. I really like what Tampa has done without Kucherov. The Islanders are playing great Barry Trotz hockey. I mean, talk about a lunch pail, blue collar team. They come to work every day. They're better than Columbus in that respect now.
They are
big time. And I think Philly's one of those teams that's going to break with Boston. So I think you've got Tampa, you've got the Islanders, you've got Philly, and you've got Boston.
And you got Tampa's in the Central with the team.
Sorry, my apologies.
Tampa, but since you went there, the Carolina Hurricanes, man. Are you shocked at where they are right now? I mean, I talked to Rod a couple weeks ago, and legit, I'm going to ask you what I asked him. Did you see the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes being on top of their divisions at this point in the season? Now, granted, that was 2 weeks ago. I want to ask you that same question. What do you think of Carolina?
Carolina's got a great coach. Rob Brindamore is tried and true, proven.
Probably one of the most.
He coaches the same way in the regular season he does in the playoffs. What we thought in terms of them making a deal potentially for Line at the beginning of the year didn't happen to happen. They've got a solid defense. Goaltending their goaltending is not very well known. I mean, if you asked me who their two goaltenders are, I couldn't tell you. But Carolina's playing solid hockey, almost that same style of hockey that the Islanders are playing. I just think they have a little more talent outside of Matty Barzal. But, I mean, there's some really good players in Carolina, and they're doing good hockey.
Now, goaltending in Carolina, is that an issue in your mind? Will that be an issue going forward?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, Carolina, Columbus, Florida. I mean, these teams have gone deep into this early season, and they've got goaltenders that could, pull out a series if they stand on their heads. I don't pass it by them. Like I said, I don't see them needing to make a move for a goaltender right now.
See, this is going to be one of the most, and I know this 30 games down the road, but one of the most unpredictable playoff years I think we've ever seen. I mean, sure. we said that last year, but this year is the same. One of the most unpredictable. So, great show tonight. Thank you guys for watching at home. Theo, anything else before we get out of here?
Just want to say, shout out to all the females out there, International Women's Day, for what they do, getting the respects that they deserve. Great to see Jen Botterill on the Sportsnet cast on Saturdays. Shout out to Jen, as well as a great shout out to the U19 Junior Predator team out of Nashville, winning their district's tournament this past weekend, and Canadian hockey alum Delaney Collins. So great job for those girls. They'll be on my show Thursday night at 6. So I'll leave it at that.
Ooh, that's a good plug, Theo, right there.
I had to plug it. Sorry.
Hey, it seems like you've been doing this for a while, so I'll let you do what you got to do, man.
No, we got Craig Geeky on tomorrow night at 6. He's got a son, Morgan, who plays for Carolina, Noah, who plays baseball down in your neck of the woods in Kansas, right next door to Missouri, plays for a 4-year college down there, Euphoria, and Connor, who's going to be playing in the WHL in the East Bubble in Regina starting this weekend. So Craig tells us and talks to us a lot about growing up and making the boys proud and making them proud and letting them take the reins by themselves, not being coerced too much as being, forced into playing a sport, just letting them play and being each other's top fans. That's the greatest conversation I had today. And again, like I said, Delaney will join me with a couple of the players on Thursday on the ice, 6 p.m. here on ASTV.
Very good plugs. I need to learn how to do that, man. Like, if I go on any other show on ASTV, I need to learn how to plug that quick because, man, you're a lot smoother than I would be. I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. It's always good to talk to you, Joe.
Hey, no problem. Hey, we'll do it again tomorrow, huh?
We shall.
So, for Theo, I'm Joe. Thank you guys for watching tonight. Until tomorrow night, be good to one another. Happy National Women's Day. Have a good one.